Welcome to a place where time stands perfectly still. Tonight, we invite you to drift into a moment suspended between past and present, where the silent echoes of ancient lives whisper softly through empty streets and quiet doorways. Here, in the remarkably preserved cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, a world quietly preserved awaits your gentle discovery. These are places where history breathes, not in the rush of crowds or the clamour of modern life, but in the profound stillness of stones that remember. Let yourself settle deeply as we begin a journey of gentle discovery through these forgotten cities, where every worn stone, every painted wall, every quiet courtyard holds the peaceful essence of daily life from nearly 2,000 years ago. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and allow yourself to be transported to this sanctuary of time, where the past rests in perfect tranquility. We approach the ancient gates, massive stones fitted together with the precision that only Roman hands could achieve. These sturdy sentinels have stood for centuries, welcoming travelers into a world that has waited patiently for our arrival. Step through and feel the immediate hush that settles around you. The air is cool here, carrying with it the faint scent of Mediterranean herbs and the timeless essence of volcanic stone. Beneath your feet, the paving stones tell their own quiet story. Each block of dark volcanic rock has been worn smooth by countless ancient footsteps. Roman citizens, merchants, children running to meet their friends, all their journeys now transformed into this peaceful pathway for your evening meditation. The streets stretch before you in perfect silence. No carriages rattle over these stones now. No voices call from doorway to doorway. Instead, there is only the gentle whisper of wind through narrow passages, the soft sigh of history settling into its eternal rest. Here, the shadows are loam and cool, providing refuge from the warm Italian sun. The lanes wind between houses that still stand proud, their walls rising on either side like ancient guardians protecting the quietude within. As you walk these empty streets, notice how the ancient Roman planners created such perfect order, straight lines intersecting at right angles, creating a grid that brings a sense of calm organization to this preserved world. Each intersection offers a new vista, a new glimpse into the domestic tranquility that once flourished here. The worn ruts in the stone speak of wagon wheels that once rolled through these passages, carrying goods from the fertile countryside, wine and oil, grain and pottery, all the simple necessities of a life lived in harmony with the rhythm of seasons. But now there is only the profound peace of a world at rest. The stepping stones that once helped citizens cross muddy streets now stand like small monuments to practical wisdom, while the raised sidewalks provide the perfect vantage point to observe the gentle undulations of these ancient thoroughfares. In the distance, Mount Vesuvius rises like a sleeping giant, its slopes now green with vineyards and gardens, a serene backdrop to this theatre of preservation. The mountain watches over these cities with the patience of geological time, a silent witness to the beauty of what has been saved. Let your mind wander down these quiet streets, feeling the coolness of the shadows, hearing only the soft whisper of breeze through ancient stone, as we prepare to enter the intimate spaces where families once lived their daily lives in perfect Roman tranquility. Now we cross the threshold into the heart of ancient domestic life, where families gathered, where daily rituals unfolded in spaces designed for both comfort and beauty. Here in the atrium, the very center of Roman home life, sunlight filters down through the opening above, the impluvium casting gentle patterns of light and shadow across marble floors that still gleam with their original polish. The air is cooler here, protected by thick walls that have preserved not just the structure, but the very atmosphere of tranquil family living. Your eyes are drawn upward to the walls. And what walls these are, painted with such exquisite care that the colours seem to breathe with life even now. Deep crimson reds that speak of Roman luxury, soft ochre, yellows warm as Mediterranean sunshine, and blues so pure they seem to hold the very essence of the ancient sky. These frescoes tell their stories in whispers, mythological scenes where gods and mortals dance in eternal tableaux, pastoral landscapes where shepherds tend their flocks beside crystalline streams, and intimate glimpses of daily life, women arranging flowers, children playing with their pets, all rendered with such loving detail that you can almost hear their gentle laughter echoing through time. Move closer to these painted walls. Notice how the artists created such depth, such dimension, that you feel you could step through these painted doorways into gardens that exist only in pigment and dream. The trompe-l'oeil effects are so masterful that columns seem to project from the walls, and distant vistas appear to stretch far beyond the confines of these rooms. In the peristyle garden beyond, the heart truly finds its peace. Here, surrounded by slender columns that frame the sky like a natural temple, families would gather in the evening coolness. The small pool at the centre catches rainwater, its surface now mirror still, reflecting the gentle movement of clouds overhead. The mosaic floors beneath your feet are masterpieces of patient craft, thousands upon thousands of tiny stones, tessera, fitted together with such precision that they form flowing patterns, geometric designs that seem to pulse with their own rhythm, and pictorial scenes of such delicate beauty that they rival the greatest paintings. Here, a floor mosaic depicts dolphins playing in stylized waves, their forms so graceful and naturalistic that they seem ready to leap from their stone medium into living water. There, intricate floral patterns spiral outward from central medallions, creating mandalas of stone that draw the eye ever inward towards states of deeper contemplation. In the quiet corners of these homes, small domestic altars stand as testament to the spiritual life that flourished here. The Lares and Penates, household gods, were honoured with simple offerings, a bit of bread, a few drops of wine, tokens of gratitude for the daily blessings of a peaceful home and loving family. These are not grand temples, but intimate spaces for private devotion, where mothers would teach children to honour the spirits that protected their hearth, where fathers would pause in their daily tasks to acknowledge the sacred in the ordinary. The very layout of these homes speaks to the Roman genius for combining beauty with function, rooms flowing naturally one into another, each spaced, designed for its specific purpose, yet harmoniously connected to the whole. Bedrooms with their simple but elegant furnishings, dining rooms where friends would recline on couches around low tables, studies where scrolls were carefully read by oil lamp light. Every detail speaks of lives lived with attention to beauty, to comfort, to the gentle rhythms that make a house truly a home. The bronze fixtures still gleam, door handles worn smooth by countless hands, window shutters that once filtered the bright Mediterranean light into these chambers of rest and reflection. In these preserved interiors, time itself seems to rest, waiting patiently for us to appreciate the simple elegance that once made daily life here such a quiet celebration of human craft and care. Now we wander into the commercial heart of these ancient cities, where the rhythm of daily trade once filled these spaces with purposeful energy, but where now only the gentle whisper of memory moves through workshops and stores that stand ready, as if their owners had simply stepped away for a moment and might return at any time. The bakeries draw us first, their massive stone ovens still radiating an almost mystical presence. These great domed chambers, built of fire-resistant brick and volcanic stone, were the beating hearts of neighborhood life. Imagine the warmth that once emanated from these ovens, not the fierce heat of flames, but the gentle, nurturing warmth that transformed simple flour and water into the daily bread that sustained entire communities. The stone counters before these ovens tell their own stories, worn smooth by countless transactions, their surfaces still bearing the subtle depressions where loaves were placed, where coins changed hands, where neighbors met each morning to collect the bread that would grace their family tables. These counters are works of art in themselves, solid blocks of local stone fitted with circular holes that once held great terracotta jars, dolia, storing the grain and oil that would become tomorrow's nourishment. Move closer to examine the tools that hang still from iron hooks, bronze ladles darkened with age, but still bearing the elegant curves that Roman craftsmen gave to even the most utilitarian objects. Wooden paddles worn smooth by use, their handles shaped perfectly to fit human hands, designed for sliding loaves into the depths of those great ovens where the alchemy of baking transformed raw ingredients into sustenance. The flour mills nearby speak to the careful process that preceded each day's baking. Great circular stones of volcanic rock, the upper stone rotating slowly over the lower, powered by the patient plodding of donkeys whose hoofbeats once provided a steady rhythm to the morning hours. These mills ground not just wheat, but the very rhythm of daily life, marking time with their slow, meditative turning. In the Thermopolia, the ancient equivalent of cafes, stone counters stretch along the street frontage, their surfaces pierced with circular openings that once held ceramic vessels, keeping soups and stews warm for the workers and travelers who needed quick, nourishing meals. The frescoes that decorate these spaces show us the very foods that were served. Fresh fish gleaming silver on marble slabs, amphors of wine painted with such loving detail that you can almost taste the vintage, loaves of bread rendered in pigment, but somehow still warm to the imagination. The wine shops reveal the sophisticated palate of these ancient communities, great terracotta amphora embedded in the counters, their graceful forms speaking of distant vineyards, of harvests celebrated under Mediterranean skies, of the patient process of fermentation that transformed simple grapes into the wine that graced both humble meals and grand celebrations. These vessels, sealed with cork and marked with the vintner's seal, travelled across the Roman world, carrying with them not just fermented grape juice, but the very essence of place, the terroir of distant hillsides, the skill of winemakers whose names have been lost to time, but whose craft lives on in these silent testimonies to their expertise. The textile workshops invite us into spaces where beauty was woven thread by thread, where the simple materials of daily life were transformed into objects of lasting elegance. The looms stand empty now, their wooden frames waiting patiently for hands that will never return, but the bronze weights that once tensioned the warp threads still hang in perfect rows, creating their own quiet music when the gentle breeze stirs them. Examine the dye vats, great ceramic vessels that once bubbled with colours extracted from distant lands, purple from murex shells gathered on eastern shores, red from madder root, yellow from saffron threads more precious than gold. The very stones around these vats are still stained with pigment, ghost colours that speak of fabrics so beautiful they were treasured across the ancient world. The pottery workshops reveal the marriage of function and beauty that characterized all Roman craft, wheels worn smooth by countless rotations, kilns whose fire chambers tell of the careful control of heat and flame required to transform common clay into vessels of extraordinary grace. Shelves line the walls, still holding examples of the potter's art, cups and bowls, oil lamps decorated with scenes of daily life, storage jars whose forms seem to embody the very essence of plenty. Notice how each object, no matter how utilitarian its purpose, bears the mark of an artisan who took pride in their work. Handles shaped not just for function, but for the pleasure of the hand that would hold them. Spouts designed not just to pour, but to please the eye. Decorative elements that transform the mundane into the memorable. The leather workshops carry still a faint aroma of tanned hides. Tools hanging in precise order from wooden pegs, awls and needles. Cutting knives whose blades have been honed to perfect sharpness. Stamps for creating decorative patterns on finished goods. The workbenches, worn smooth by generations of craftsmen, still bear the subtle impressions where countless pieces were shaped and finished. Here sandals were crafted to fit individual feet, belts tooled with intricate patterns, pouches and bags designed to carry the necessities of daily life, each piece made not in haste, but with the careful attention that characterized all Roman craftsmanship, where utility and beauty were never seen as opposing forces, but as natural partners in the creation of objects worthy of daily use. Even in these commercial spaces, the Romans' genius for organization reveals itself. Streets laid out for efficient movement of goods, drainage systems that kept shop floors dry, architectural details that speak of urban planning that considered not just the practical needs of commerce, but the aesthetic pleasure of those who would walk these streets each day. The silence now is not empty, but full, pregnant with the memory of voices calling their wares, of coins clinking into waiting hands, of the gentle negotiations that are the heart of all honest trade, of the satisfaction that comes from work well done, goods fairly exchanged, and communities nourished not just by bread and wine, but by the human connections that commerce at its best provides. In this quietude, we can almost hear the ghost of that ancient prosperity, not the frantic pace of modern commerce, but the measured, sustainable rhythm of communities that understood that true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in the circulation of goods and goodwill that allows all to flourish. We emerge now into the vast embrace of the Forum, the beating heart of civic life, where once the voices of citizens rose in debate and discussion, but where now only the whisper of wind through ancient columns creates the soundtrack for our contemplation. This grand open space, paved with massive blocks of travertine and marble, stretches before us like a stone sea frozen in perfect tranquility. The scale here is designed to humble and inspire, to remind each visitor of their place within something greater than themselves. Yet the effect now is not one of intimidation, but of profound peace. The colonnade that surrounds this sacred civic space creates a rhythm of light and shadow. Each column a meditation on the Roman genius for combining strength with grace, functionality with beauty. Stand in the center of this great plaza and feel the weight of history settling gently around you like a comfortable cloak. Here magistrates once pronounced judgments that would echo through generations. Merchants displayed their finest wares on market days when the space buzzed with the energy of commerce. Citizens gathered to hear proclamations that would shape the course of their daily lives. But notice how even in its grandest public moments, this space was designed for human comfort, porticos providing shelter from sun and rain, the proportions calculated not to overwhelm but to welcome, the materials chosen not just for their durability but for their ability to age with dignity and grace. The basilica rises at the Forum's edge like a temple to civic order, its great hall once echoing with the voices of those seeking justice, conducting business, finding resolution to the disputes that are inevitable when communities grow large enough to require formal structures for maintaining harmony. The columns here are masterpieces of architectural sculpture, their capitals carved with such intricate detail that each one could serve as a meditation on the flowering of human artistic achievement. Step inside this basilica and feel the coolness that massive stone walls provide. The way sound behaves differently in spaces designed for oratory and deliberation. The marble floors still bear the subtle weir patterns created by centuries of citizens walking these same paths. Their footsteps now part of the very fabric of the building, their presence absorbed into stone that remembers every generation that has passed through these halls. The temples that grace the forum's perimeter speak to the spiritual foundations that underpin civic life, not as places of fearful supplication, but as serene sanctuaries where the divine and human worlds met in harmony. The Temple of Jupiter, with its commanding position overlooking the entire forum, stands as a testament to the Roman understanding that true authority derives not from force, but from alignment with principles larger than any individual will. Climb the marble steps to these temple platforms and observe how the architects created spaces that elevate both body and spirit. The very act of ascending these steps, a physical metaphor for the elevation of consciousness that religious observance was meant to provide. The columns here are not merely structural supports, but prayers rendered in stone, their fluted surfaces catching and releasing light in patterns that seem to breathe with life. The altar areas, now empty of offerings, but still radiating a sense of sacred purpose, invite contemplation of the role that gratitude and reverence played in the daily rhythm of ancient life. Here citizens brought the first fruits of their harvests, vessels of wine and oil, simple flowers gathered from their gardens, tokens of appreciation for the blessings that made their community possible. The theatre draws us with its perfect acoustic engineering, a testament to the Roman understanding that culture and civic life are inseparable. These stone seats, carved to fit the human form and arranged in mathematical precision, once held audiences who came not just for entertainment, but for the shared experience that binds communities together. Sit for a moment in these ancient seats and listen to the silence, but it is not empty silence. It is pregnant with the memory of voices raised in chorus, of actors bringing the great stories to life, of audiences laughing and weeping together as they witness the timeless dramas that help us understand what it means to be human. The stage area, with its elaborate backdrop of marble columns and painted scenery, was designed as more than a performance space. It was a window into other worlds, other possibilities, a place where the imagination could roam freely while the body rested in perfect comfort on these precisely angled stone benches. The amphitheatre speaks to different aspects of Roman civic life. Its oval arena surrounded by tiers of seating that could accommodate thousands, yet even here, in a space designed for spectacle. The architect's attention to human needs is evident. The sight lines are perfect from every seat, the access corridors designed for smooth flow of crowds, the underground chambers beneath the arena floor engineered with the same precision that characterized all Roman construction. But in its current silence, this great oval becomes something else entirely, a natural amphitheatre for meditation, a space where the acoustics that once carried the roar of crowds now amplify only the gentle sounds of wind and the distant call of birds nesting in its ancient stones. The public fountains throughout these civic spaces remind us that Roman civilization was built on the understanding that beauty and utility must flow together, like the waters they channeled from distant mountains. These fountains, fed by aqueducts that were marvels of engineering, provided not just the practical necessity of clean water, but the aesthetic pleasure of its movement and sound. Listen to the gentle gurgle of water still flowing through some of these ancient channels, a sound that has remained constant for nearly 2 millennia, connecting us directly to the sensory experience of citizens who lived and worked and loved in these spaces when they were new. The basins, carved from single blocks of marble, show the wear patterns created by countless hands drawing water for drinking, for cleaning, for the simple pleasure of cool liquid on a warm Mediterranean day. The public baths, those masterpieces of Roman social engineering, reveal perhaps more than any other structures the civilization's commitment to the idea that civic life should nourish both body and spirit. The elaborate heating systems, the progression from tepid to hot to cold waters, the spaces for exercise and massage and conversation, all speak to an understanding that true prosperity includes leisure, that a successful society provides not just the necessities of life but its pleasures. In the silence that now fills these bathing chambers, we can almost sense the ghost of that ancient understanding. That civilization is measured not by its monuments to power, but by its provision for the daily renewal of its citizens, for the spaces where community is built not through grand gestures, but through the simple sharing of common human needs and pleasures. Even the administrative buildings, the offices where the practical business of governance was conducted, were designed with the same attention to beauty that characterized temples and theatres. The clerks and scribes who maintained the records that kept civilization functioning worked in spaces graced with frescoes, their daily tasks elevated by surroundings that honored the dignity of public service. Here in these quiet offices, surrounded by the tools of record-keeping and administration, we glimpse the Roman genius for understanding that the mundane work of civilization, the keeping of accounts, the recording of transactions, the maintenance of legal records, is itself a form of sacred trust, deserving of spaces that reflect its importance to the common good. The forum complex as a whole becomes, in its preserved silence, a meditation on the possibility of human community, on the dream of spaces designed not for the glorification of individual power, but for the flourishing of collective life, where beauty and function, private need and public good, practical necessity and spiritual aspiration flow together in harmonious balance. Now we turn from the grand monuments of civic life to discover the gentler spaces where nature and human cultivation joined in perfect harmony, where the Romans demonstrated their understanding that true civilization blooms not in opposition to the natural world, but in partnership with it. The villa gardens, carefully restored to echo their ancient splendor, invite us into spaces designed as outdoor rooms, where families retreated from the heat of midday to find refreshment among carefully tended plants and the soothing music of flowing water. These are not wild spaces but cultivated ones, where every tree, every flowering shrub, every path was chosen and placed with the same attention to beauty and function that characterized Roman architecture. Follow the narrow channels that carry water through these gardens. Notice how the Romans understood that the sound of moving water creates an immediate sense of peace, cooling not just the air, but the spirit itself. These water features, fed by the same aqueduct systems that served the great public fountains, demonstrate that luxury in the Roman world meant bringing the gifts of nature into intimate spaces where they could be appreciated daily rather than merely admired from a distance. The herb gardens reveal the practical wisdom that underpinned Roman cultivation. Rosemary and thyme, sage and mint, oregano and basil, plants that serve not only as seasonings for the table, but as medicines for common ailments. Run your fingers, in imagination, along the silvery leaves of lavender. Inhale the fragrance that has remained unchanged for 2 millennia, connecting you directly to the sensory experience of ancient gardeners who understood that healing and pleasure often grow from the same soil. The fruit trees that shade these garden spaces speak to the Roman genius for long-term thinking. Olive trees whose gnarled trunks may have witnessed the city's final days, fig trees whose descendants still bear fruit sweetened by the same Mediterranean sun, grapevines whose tendrils climb supports that were old when Pliny was young. These trees remind us that the Romans planted not just for immediate gratification, but for generations yet to come, that their understanding of prosperity included the patience to invest in beauty that would mature long after the planters themselves have returned to dust. In their shade, we find the same cool refuge that provided respite for countless generations of residents who understood that true wealth includes time to appreciate the simple pleasure of dappled light filtering through leaves. The formal garden layouts, with their geometric precision and careful symmetry, reveal how Roman designers brought architectural principles into living spaces, creating outdoor rooms bounded not by walls, but by carefully pruned hedges, floored not with marble, but with gravel paths that crunch pleasantly underfoot, and roofed not with tile, but with the ever-changing canopy of sky. Here boxwood hedges, trimmed to perfect rectangular forms, create intimate spaces within larger garden areas, while climbing roses trained over wooden arbors provide both fragrance and the gentle shade that makes these spaces perfect for afternoon contemplation. The interplay between controlled cultivation and natural growth creates a harmony that speaks to the Roman understanding that civilization at its best enhances rather than destroys the natural world. Beyond the cultivated gardens, the landscape itself becomes part of the experience. Rolling hills covered with the silver green of olive groves, vineyards climbing slopes that catch the morning sun, distant mountains creating a backdrop that changes color with the light, from pale gold at dawn to deep purple at twilight. Mount Vesuvius itself, that great sleeping presence that dominates the horizon, appears now not as a threat, but as a guardian, its slopes green with the same vines and gardens that have flourished here for generations since the ancient cities found their rest. The mountain's peaceful aspect reminds us that even the most powerful forces of nature can be sources of fertility and blessing, that the same volcanic soil that created these cities' final chapter also provides the rich earth that nourishes the abundance we see today. In the spaces where cultivation gives way to wilder growth, where nature has slowly reclaimed corners and edges, we find a different kind of beauty, the soft chaos of plants choosing their own patterns. Wildflowers blooming in ancient courtyards, small trees growing from cracks in walls, ivy softening the edges of human construction with its persistent green embrace. These spaces remind us that the boundary between civilization and nature was never absolute in the Roman world, that their gardens were successful precisely because they worked with natural processes rather than against them, creating spaces where human intention and natural vitality could flourish together in sustainable harmony. The seasonal rhythms that govern these gardens connect us to the eternal cycles that structured ancient life. Spring's tender green giving way to summer's abundance, autumn's harvest followed by winter's rest, and always the promise of renewal that comes with the turning year. In this timeless rhythm, we find the deeper peace that comes from recognizing our place within patterns larger and more enduring than any individual life. As our journey through these timeless cities draws toward its peaceful close, we find ourselves wandering down a quiet side street, one of those intimate pathways that branch away from the grand thoroughfares, where the pace of life was always gentler, more contemplative, more attuned to the rhythms of home and heart. Here, in these narrower lanes, the preservation seems even more miraculous, more personal, as if we have been granted access to the private thoughts of the ancient world. A child's toy, carved from wood and somehow spared by time, rests on a windowsill where small hands placed it centuries ago. A bronze oil lamp, its wick long since consumed, still sits on a table as if waiting for evening to come so it might once again cast its warm glow across walls that remember the voices of families gathered for their evening meal. In a small courtyard garden, protected by walls that have weathered every storm, a single flower blooms, descendant perhaps of seeds planted by hands that knew these stones when they were new. The sight of this simple blossom, thriving in soil enriched by centuries of quiet decay and patient renewal, becomes a meditation on the persistence of beauty, on life's gentle insistence on continuing, on finding ways to flourish even in the spaces that seem forgotten by time. The silence here is different from the silence of the great public spaces. This is the silence of rest, of completion, of stories told and retold until they have become part of the very stones themselves. It is not the silence of emptiness but of fullness, not the quiet of abandonment but of patient waiting, as if these cities rest in the confidence that their beauty, their lessons, their gentle wisdom will continue to find those who need to discover them. Stand for a moment in this quiet side street and feel the presence of all those who walked here before you, not as ghosts haunting empty spaces, but as whispers of encouragement, reminders that human life, in all its daily simplicity and occasional grandeur, is worthy of preservation, worthy of memory, worthy of the care that has kept these stones standing through centuries of change. Let your mind carry with it the images we have shared, the painted walls that still glow with ancient colour, the worn stones that remember countless footsteps, the gardens where nature and human intention dance together in eternal partnership, the workshops where craft and beauty merged in the creation of objects meant to serve and to please for generations yet to come. As you prepare to carry these visions into your own rest, remember that the peace you feel is not merely the peace of places emptied by time, but the deeper peace that comes from witnessing human life lived with attention to beauty, with respect for both work and leisure, with understanding that true prosperity includes time for contemplation, for appreciation, for the cultivation of spaces where both body and spirit can find renewal. Let yourself drift now, as gently as evening light fades from ancient courtyards, carrying with you the profound tranquility of these cities that time has transformed from places of daily activity into sanctuaries of eternal rest. In your dreams, walk again these quiet streets, rest again in these peaceful gardens, and wake tomorrow carrying something of their timeless serenity in your heart. The cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, in their perfect preservation, offer us a gift beyond archaeology, beyond history. They offer us a vision of human life lived in harmony with beauty, with nature, with the understanding that we are part of something larger and more enduring than our individual concerns. Sleep now, in the embrace of this ancient peace, knowing that some forms of beauty, once created with love and care, become truly eternal, waiting patiently through all the changes of time to share their quiet wisdom with each new generation that comes seeking rest, seeking beauty, seeking the tranquil heart that beats at the center of all truly human spaces.